Reach toward the mouth of the crocodile, past the teeth, past the bite force that can crush a human femur, toward a small flap of tissue at the back of the throat. And if you can breach it, the largest reptilian predator on the planet has to let go, not because it wants to, because its own engineering demands it. That is a technical exploit, and it is not the only one. Nature built 4 efficient killing systems, and every one of them carried an exposed component. A leopard that stopped calculating, a grizzly with a sensor too refined for blunt overload, a crocodile with an internal seal that becomes a liability, a mountain lion with the same biological dependency every animal has. What happens when a human stops acting like prey and starts acting like a technician with only seconds left to live? 2 feet. That is the distance where a leopard's attack stops being flexible and becomes committed mass and momentum. Inside that window, the animal cannot correct. It is a projectile in the last phase of flight. And if you were standing at the intercept point, that commitment is the flaw. The leopard of Mfuwe in 1987 had killed before. Reports describe an animal that had fed on humans repeatedly, and repetition had changed its script. It stopped treating the human form as a volatile threat. It started treating it like soft cargo, something to acquire, not something to solve. That habituation degraded its caution. It committed sooner, approached on a cleaner line. And once you understand that, survival looks less like brute force and more like forced system interruption. The counter is built around that commitment point. Static bait, intercept range, no wasted motion. Let the attack reach the exact zone where its own script locks rigid, and intercept before the jaw's complete acquisition. Miss it, and the stakes escalate fast. A cervical bite severs major vessels or collapses the airway. Claw trauma opens deep tissue. You do not get a second window. The leopard is not unbeatable. It is specialized, and that is different. A cat that learned to hunt humans lost the one thing that kept it alive against them: caution. It committed too early, and that commitment became the opening. The flaw is behavioral, external, written into the animal's experience, not its anatomy. The leopard failed because it learned wrong. But some flaws are not learned. Some are built into the body by evolution and impossible to patch out. The next animal on this list carries its vulnerability on the front of its face. Carl Moore and the grizzly. This is a failure of sensory architecture. A grizzly is a mass and force platform, bite compression sufficient to fracture bone. Once contact begins, you're dealing with laceration, blunt force, and a very high probability of positional collapse. You are not matching this animal in strength. That is not the operating theory. So where is the exposed part? The snout, wet, highly innervated, built to sample the environment with extreme sensitivity. Think of it like a radar dish mounted on armored hardware. The body is durable. The sensor was never built to absorb a direct hit. A punch to the nose does not knock out a bear. The mechanism is sensory overload. A sharp impact floods a structure the brain relies on for orientation and threat processing. For a brief window, the attack stops, not because the bear is hurt, because its own nervous system forced a reset. Charge, close contact, direct impact to the snout, interruption, hesitation. 400 pounds of apex predator reset by a fist. That hesitation is the whole event. Not dominance, not magic, a processing error long enough to break the attack loop, long enough to live. If the reset fails, the damage is severe. Scalp lacerations, arm injuries from shielding the throat, compression trauma if the animal pins its weight through the shoulders, blood loss builds fast. So log this one next to the leopard, same shelf, different label. The bear did not learn its way into a flaw, it was born with one, a sensor so finely tuned that one blunt hit scrambles the signal. External, again, but anatomical, not behavioral.
But the crocodile is different. Its failure point is not on the surface, it is inside. A crocodile is a clamp and submerge system, massive jaw closure, positional control in water, and the death roll, not spectacle, but a torque event designed to tear soft tissue and remove the victim's ability to orient or breathe. Most people focus on bite force. The deeper advantage is hydraulic control. The crocodile carries a throat seal called the palatal valve. It closes off the airway so water doesn't flood the lungs while the mouth is open underwater. The animal can operate in a drowning environment without drowning itself. That seal is the failure point. Plumwood, 1985, saltwater crocodile. The animal usually wins when the victim does what prey does: pull away, thrash, exhaust oxygen, let the machine run its program. She did not run the program. Grab, roll, resubmersion, another roll, repeated refusal to become passive cargo, reach toward the mouth, past the teeth, toward the internal seal, breach. Once that valve is compromised, water threatens the crocodile's own airway. The kill sequence stops because the machine has to protect itself before it can finish the job. For a moment, a release window. The damage is brutal. Puncture wounds, rotational tissue tearing, rapid oxygen depletion as each submersion drains respiratory reserve. Passivity is terminal here. The system converts panic into drowning. Compare this one next to the first two. The leopard's flaw was learned. The bear's was inherited, both external, both on the surface. The crocodile's flaw is internal. A seal engineered into the throat to keep the animal alive underwater becomes the one component a human can breach to force a release. First time in this set, the vulnerability is hidden inside the machine. But one dependency runs through all three. Every animal breathes. If you're tracking these failure modes like case files, there are more in the archive. Subscribe so the next one reaches you, because the last entry in this set exploits the vulnerability that is not species-specific, it's universal. Travis Poffman, 2019. This case matters because the failure point is not found before contact. It's found after the animal has already entered the kill sequence. A mountain lion is a compact ambush system, fast acceleration, claw anchoring, neck-targeted bite, built for close-range control. The problem changes. You're no longer intercepting a lunge, you're surviving inside full mechanical engagement. Unlike the bear's snout or the croc's valve, there is no specialized target here, no unique design flaw to find, just the dependency every animal shares: oxygen. The airway is the master switch, the master reset. Every predator can tolerate pain longer than you expect. Very few can tolerate interrupted oxygen flow. Body position and leverage matter more than striking power. Control the throat. Compress the airway until oxygen delivery drops below what the body demands. Picture a pressurized hose folded sharply in the middle. Flow stops, not because the system is destroyed, but because one segment is kinked shut. Hypoxic stress rises, bite integrity degrades, then systemic collapse follows. Facial punctures, scalp tearing, deep lacerations, but once the airway is compromised, the predator's own biology turns against it. The thing it needs most becomes the thing it cannot get. So log this final entry and read all four together. The leopard's flaw belonged to one cat that learned wrong. The bear's belonged to one species with a fragile sensor. The croc's belonged to one family of reptiles with an internal seal. But this one does not belong to the mountain lion. It belongs to every animal that breathes through a compressible airway, not uniquely vulnerable, universally vulnerable. 4 animals, 4 exposed components, and one principle that connects them all. Specialization creates dependency, and dependency always creates access. The more precisely a system is built to do one thing, the more predictable the failure becomes when that one thing is interrupted. These were not contests of raw strength. They were forced system interruptions, where the margin between exploit and death was measured in seconds.